So today I've decided to do a video on managing contractors and builders. So that could be from any size project through to from sort of a small refurbishment project up to new builds and commercial development. So the first thing I would say about any project when you are setting the expectations is to have initially a realistic cost plan. So an estimate. So that could be as say for a small refurb, it might be that you just get someone to sense check it. You might go out and get 3 builders quotes to actually sense check your price, make sure that you are in the right ballpark. If you're not, if they're all over your price, then chances are you may have missed something that actually they've already picked up. So it's about looking properly into your budget rather than just being set on a number that you actually have to deliver it by. I'm not saying that you couldn't go back to the contractors that maybe the one that you chose and then look and do a bit of value engineering to see whether you could possibly save on scope, save on additional costs to ultimately bring it into line with your projected costs. The other one then from there would be program. So it's really important to be realistic with your program. So even if you believe it can be done in, 3 months, if the builders are all coming back and saying it's going to be sort of 6 months, again, you need to sit down and look at your program. I think that program challenges and issues, ultimately they come down from the top. So again, no matter whether that's sort of a client at any level, it's all about being realistic with a program, because ultimately if we're not realistic with the programs to start with, we're putting pressure onto the main contractor as such, who then ultimately will have to put pressure onto their subcontractors to deliver. So it all goes down through the chain again. So realistic budget and a realistic program. The second one that I would just want to touch base on is contracts and scope. So again, this doesn't matter whether it's a smaller project. Actually, it's just as important on a smaller project to make sure if you haven't got a contract in place, obviously I would always advise getting a contract in place. Maybe that's a JCT or an NEC would be the two primary ones to use. But it's making sure really that you have you've scoped the work. So to me, it doesn't matter whether, it could be a good friend of yours, whoever it may be. It's always good to have at least a scope in place so that you've got a scope and again, cost plan program to actually you've all got parameters that you work within. So ultimately it protects both you and the person carrying out the job for you, because you know exactly what they've priced for, they know exactly what they've priced for. If they've said that something is going to be an extra, it's as simple as going back to the scope, was it included? If not, then again it is obviously a viable variation and it is justifiable from their side to add additional cost and maybe program onto that project. It's very clear, it sets out lines, and I think it helps keep good relationships. The third one is prompt payments. I think sometimes builders get a bit of a sort of bad reputation. Obviously main contractors get a bad reputation as well. A lot of this comes down to payments, in the fact that you would have heard about 30, 60, 90-day payment terms, whereas ultimately, cash flow is king for all of us. It's difficult for everyone, especially in these times, to run a business. So actually, if your contractor's saying, well, we'd like an element up front, I think if you've done your due diligence on that contractor, you've got the recommendations, you've got the contracts in place, actually a small amount up front is not too much of an issue. It might even be for smaller contractors, if you're doing a refurb, for example, that you may actually buy the materials directly, so that it avoids too many overheads, too many costs for them at the start of the project. But again, I think prompt payment, once they've got their invoice into you, is just making sure obviously whatever payment terms you've agreed in that contract are delivered upon. As we all know, there is nothing worse than receiving your payment, whether it's your wages, whether it's anything. When that's received late, it's really not good for morale. So I think keeping them payments constant is always a positive. I mean, a lot of the people that I work with, to be honest, I think they're quite happy to work with me, and they do go the extra mile, in my opinion, because they know that I never mess around with money. I've said that I will pay them on X date, and they will always get paid on that date. So I tend to get, as long as I've got my invoices in by Wednesday, they will be paid on Friday. That's how quick I do mine. Again, I understand it's different for everyone. And obviously this is on sort of projects up to around 100,000, tend to be my ones that I would run. Obviously for larger developers, etc. Obviously it is a little bit different. Obviously there's a lot to go through in terms of the valuations, maybe a sign off by a client, etc. The fourth one, again, I just touched upon it earlier, there was recommendations. Make sure, again, this is mainly aimed at sort of smaller companies or smaller developers that are working with builders. Maybe you're a first time developer, maybe you're doing a refurb, maybe you're doing something to your own home. it is to make sure that you've got recommendations. Ultimately, a good builder or contractor, they're always more than happy to show you pictures, to give you referrals. Quite often they'll even take you over to look at the projects that they've done before, because actually they're really proud of the work that they've done. That for me is one of the best ways to, you know, see if they're actually competent, they're experienced, and they will deliver what they've said. So yeah, recommendation, massive one. Obviously, once you go up to the, you know, the bigger scale projects, that would be through frameworks, various procurement routes, and that's a little bit different, not something I'm going to go into today. And then the final one, definitely one of the most important, is communication. So as we all know, things are, at the start of a project, things are often good. However, when communication starts to fall over, trust breaks down, and ultimately the program, the costs and everything can spiral quite quickly. It's so important to communicate well between you and whether that's a project manager, a builder, whoever you're dealing with. It's a massive part of construction, and we always talk about collaboration, but in my opinion, collaboration is led by communication. Communication is the baseline for all successful projects, and it will continue to be. Again, whether that's a small refurb up to, you know, multi-million-pound development, it's all about communication, and, you know, I suppose being honest and upfront with each other, rather than trying to hide bits and pieces. It's just about being open, transparent, and, as I say, delivering the job. Everyone's got the same end goal in mind, so it's just about achieving that. So they're my few tips. Obviously, it's very high level. I'm more than happy to go into anything else if you'd like me to. Please do comment on this video. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I hope to put out more content that resonates with you.